Digital transformation is top of mind for companies across every industry. But what does the right pace of change actually look like? Where do you start? The answers lie in thoughtful solutions integration. It's a breakthrough category that we here at Insight have been delivering on for our clients, and they're seeing some incredible results. Here to unpack that subject with me today is Stan Lequin, VP of Solutions at Insight. Stan, thanks so much for joining me to talk about digital transformation and solutions integration. I don't think we can have a full discussion about it without first validating kind of the reality that organizations are facing. So massive ecosystems, 20 to 30-year-old systems, a lot of layers of complexity. Can you kind of shed some light on the challenges that these kinds of environments create for organizations when they're trying to pursue digital transformation? How does it kind of hinder their progress?
Yeah, so I think when you think of what companies are trying to do, right, it's about getting access to information quicker. It's about creating an unbelievable experience for teammates, for clients, whoever it may be. And it's a true barrier when you look at what your technology debt is and working through how do I modernize those applications, how to modernize the systems, how to work through the costs associated with it, and then create an unbelievable experience. And so it's really a balance of, looking where you've been, understanding that technology debt, what that spend has been, understand the data that exists within those systems, who uses those systems, how to unlock that systems, but do in a way that you can create modern solutions that allow real-time access to data, the right amount of access to data securely. And so the more complex your infrastructure is as it goes through acquisition or as it grows through just time, you sort of make decisions that we want to go fast and we're not going to fix this, we'll fix this at a later date. And then so it becomes a hindrance in the future to true transformation. So we see organizations balancing that with net new is going to be in sort of this modern, we're going to work on unlocking that data, and over time we'll start to transform those applications as well. So, and we're talking companies that could have thousands of applications that are really impactful to their business. And so it's being able to trace and understand each component of that, who uses it, security posture. It's a lot of complexity that organizations are dealing with.
Yeah, there's a lot of priorities that they're juggling for sure. When we meet our clients and when we talk to organizations, how do we help them determine what to prioritize first, second, third? Because there's a lot of things that can be done in tandem, but how do we sort of meet clients where they are?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for us is it's understanding the business outcomes they're trying to drive, understanding what competitive threats are, where there's adjacent markets they can enter into. We've seen just a ton of disruption that happens with people entering net new markets with the technology play. And because they're starting from fresh and anew, they kind of have a leg up with folks that have typically been in those markets. And we see clients that struggle with sort of, their old way of business becomes a hindrance to the new way that they need to do business and have that agility and flexibility. And so for us, it's really about sort of categorizing the initiatives they have, the impacts of those initiatives, understanding how that maps to what's happening in industries in general, and then helping with the prioritization associated with that. And then the biggest thing for us is we have to demonstrate those wins. And so whether it be access to new information, creating new data insights, whatever it may be, for us it's quickly creating a sense of, wow, this is a win, we're going in the right direction. We know it's going to be a hard journey, but we're feeling really good about the initial results.
Can you touch on the importance of a strong integration strategy for companies today? Why is that so important now?
Yeah, it really comes down to, if you think of sort of where we got to, all organizations, right? We got to this place, again, through mergers and acquisitions and growth and rapid growth. And so really what the integration strategy is, it's really about that go-forward roadmap. I mean, we think of about IT and how IT connects into businesses completely different now. It's around this concept of we're going to own products and we're going to have product owners, and those product owners are going to have releases and they're going to be able to publish out what is going to be available in each specific release. And so it's all built with a roadmap in mind where you don't want to paint yourself into a corner again with the decisions you're making in the future while we work on transforming the decisions we made in the past.
What are some examples of priorities that organizations are trying to address? So think about happier customers, more productive workforces, not so much on the technology side, but more bottom line business, bigger picture oriented.
Yeah, I think it all comes to experience, right? So best experience wins, and it's the experience you give your teammates, and that's very specific per industry. So in healthcare, that would be your clinical staff. And so by giving a great experience, you keep down attrition, you enable teammates, you allow them to get access to the data they need. And so we focus on experiences, and we focus on experiences really across a couple areas. So first one is your knowledge workers or your teammates. Next one is our clients have their own customers. And so, we've seen best experience always wins. And so it's about creating that experience and that connection with our clients to their customers. And so big focus on that. It's about the experience you get when you unlock data and the right amount of data to the right people. And so there's a big focus on getting data out to the right people, out to the edges, sort of a democratization of data that's happening, and then an enablement of, allowing people to get access to data to make the best possible decisions. So that's an experience that we want to drive. And the last one is really around product enhancements. And when you think about what's happening around mobile and IoT and devices, you can create experiences that have never existed before for our clients. We have clients that have been in industries that have not had direct connections with their customers. So it was kind of a more business to business type of relationship. And they realized that without having that connection, without having that stickiness, without unlocking the power of an experience, that becomes a competitive risk where someone could come in and move that customer base. Think of like a Uber, what that did to the taxi industry. And so that experience and that human-centric experience that you get when it's the person and the device or the product is really critical. And so that's kind of where the focus has been.
Great. So at Insight, we like to think about solutions integration kind of like a Lego build. Not thinking about things in silos anymore, but really meeting clients where they're at, piecing solutions together that meet the outcomes that they're looking for. Can you kind of speak to that Lego analogy? What are your thoughts on it? How does it occur to you in your mind?
Yeah, I think it's just building blocks, right? And so as your company matures, as you make acquisitions, you sort of get new Lego sets that you have to sort of integrate, and it could be incredibly powering, right? Put it all in I remember playing with Legos as a kid, and my friend would bring his set over, bring my set over, we'd throw them on the table and build something completely new, right? And so there's a lot of flexibility associated with that, but you still have to run businesses as you're working through it. And I think a big component of it is it's not only understanding where you're going, but it's important to understand where you've been as well, right? And what the assets are you have and how you can redeploy or leverage those assets in a new way. And that's really kind of what our focus is, right? I know we're going to talk about us as a solution integrator, but it's, for us, if you think of sort of the three ways that we look at transformation, right? You start with the IT procurement aspect of it, or what are the technology assets that you currently own. We talk about this concept of digital transformation. I think of digital transformation as platforms for innovation. And then we think of the actual innovation component, which is where we start to get into things like user-centric and really sort of the impactful things that everyone feels and sort of the underlying platforms. And so I think what's really unique, if you think of Legos, there's sort of 3 Lego sets there that we need to build in a way that's going to yield the best possible opportunity and the best business results for our clients. And it's really hard to do that if you don't understand that technology debt aspect of it, if you don't understand where our clients have been in the past. We have clients that we've been with for 18, 20 years or longer. And in those relationships, we've seen them transform. We understand the acquisitions that we've made, understand the business pivots they've made. We understand the technology that they've purchased and why they've made those acquisitions at the time. And what's really amazing is we're engaging with clients today around taking those assets and reprovisioning them in a new way that connects in sort of this new modality of thinking they have around building these modern solutions and this experience concept.
Could you speak to, do you have a specific client story in mind that you can maybe
Sure.
use as an anecdote?
Yeah, we have this concept of let's bring a big idea when we meet with our clients, and we challenge our teammates to do that. And this gets to sort of the idea of enablement and everything else. And when you challenge your teammates to do something incredible like that, what they come back with is really inspiring. And so we had a very large healthcare organization, and they had in the past used us to roll out a software-defined network. That software-defined network required us to put what we say at the edge, but in this case at the hospitals and clinics and other healthcare organizations, this converged infrastructure that was sitting there mostly idle. So it was doing what it needed to do around the network processing component of it, but it was terabytes of data and thousands of processors. And so they had the idea of, hey, well, let's buy this now. We'll be able to figure out a way that we're going to use this in the future. But then they kind of go on to, their sort of day-to-day activities. And so we brought our teams together, a team that did that infrastructure work out at the edge, and our team that's working around modern cloud, specifically around Google. And so Google has an incredible analytics platform. It's called BigQuery. And so you have the ability to package BigQuery and then push it out to the edges through what's called BigQuery AMI. And so our teams came together and had this idea of we could re-provision and use these thousands of processors and all this memory, put it at the edge. And it was incredible. I got to be at that meeting where we talked to our client about it, and their CTO said, this changes everything. Like, this opens up use cases for us that we couldn't even think about. And so you think about the cost aspect of it, and you're not doing egress in and out of the data centers and the cloud and all those components. But what's really incredible is like the impact it can have to patient care, because now the decisions are happening at the edge, and there's use cases you just couldn't do if you had to pull everything back to the cloud. And so that enablement, to see that CTO's excitement and realize that maybe there's some new use cases that are going to have a positive impact on human beings, is pretty exciting.
So when we think about solutions integration, a lot of that sort of that build can be what is already existing for our clients. Mm-hmm. So it's not that they have to rip and replace everything. We kind of take a strategic approach and say, what can we keep within this solution? What can we kind of layer on top of it? Is that how we approach it?
Exactly. And if you think about it, I mean, what partner can do that? What partner has that history, understands the, sort of the on-premises edge equipment side of it, right? As well as sort of the cloud side of it, and then the data use cases around healthcare. I mean, we were doing some amazing things. A lot of healthcare organizations leveraging the power of data and deep analytics and AI. And so for us to have all three of those capabilities, or all three of those Lego sets, we just build things better for our clients than anyone else can. No one else has those capabilities. And so to me, that concept of solution integrator is really sort of rooted in that concept and in the capabilities we have that I don't think I know are very unique.
Why is now the time for organizations to rethink how they are partnering with an IT provider?
Yeah, I think there's several reasons, right? Organizations don't fit a consistent pattern anymore, right? And we see that on kind of an industry by industry basis. And so there's waves that happen. And so for some of them, we're riding a wave of optimization. We've made acquisitions in the past. We've bought technology in the past. Now's the time we have to maximize that. And so we have to figure out creative ways of maximizing that to bring, a great experience. So there's those organizations. There's other organizations that are in rapid growth areas right now, right? So economic changes bring different opportunities to different industries, and those organizations are around going fast and really, approaching this concept of modern, and then have some of the constraints that maybe exist within the other areas. But I think what's really important is having a partner that can pivot into both of those. So I love to say that we're in service to our clients. And so that being in service to your clients means that as they pivot, you can pivot and you can react to what's happening to their specific organization, to their specific industry, based on what is an ever-changing, complex world that we live in. And so I think that's what's so unique about our capabilities and what you need to look for in a partner.
Yeah, the word pivot is super special. There's no reason not to pivot anymore, right? Whether it's disruption in the market or a cybersecurity and a data breach, there's always going to be a reason for a company to need to pivot in some area, and we really meet clients where they're at.
Yeah, without a doubt.
So Stan, we know that our clients can really start anywhere when they are embarking on a digital transformation initiative. What makes Insight different as an IT consultant for our clients?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of reasons. I think part of it is our portfolio. I mean, so we have strength in all the right areas that have strength. But for us, it's about, I always talk to my teammates about, keep your head up when you're in an account and look for opportunities to help them. If you see, we're engaged in a data project and you look at this and go, man, it's a really cool way that we can monetize this data in a new way, right? Talk to the client about that concept. And again, it's in service to the client. Maybe the client says, hey, we thought about that. Or maybe the client goes, hey, we absolutely love that. Let's move forward together on this. Or maybe the client decides to do something on their own. But I think that's a way that is within your own domain that you could be looking and coming up with opportunities. But I think you also see a lot about what clients are doing, and you might see things that maybe aren't aligned to best practices. And so for us, it's about, maybe we start in data, but as we're working through data, we see that there's an opportunity around cybersecurity that we want to, connect with our client about, or we see that there's an opportunity around sort of underlying platforms and infrastructure. And so for us, it's all about, being in service to our clients, keeping our head up, and let's see where we can help them. Yeah. And let's bring those opportunities to them. And again, if that's an opportunity they want to use us for, that's amazing. If it's an opportunity that they've already thought about or they want to go in a different direction, then that's great too, as long as we're providing that value.
Yep, and the result of all of that, is holistic transformation, right? It doesn't happen all at once, but by meeting clients where they're at and seeing some of the adjacencies, dependencies, we can really drive holistic transformation that's very lasting and strategic for those clients.
Yeah, and then help connect with other transformations that we've driven, right? I think that's a big part of it as well. What I always try to talk to the team about is like just ask all the why questions to get to the biggest thing that's driving this transformation. And so, if it's something we're doing that is storage related, well, that's based on a need that's probably around an app, and that's probably based around a need that's based around a business outcome. That business outcome's based on something else. And so let's get to the highest level of what the client's looking to do, and then let's see if we can come up with a way to maybe think a little bit differently or help them along that journey and continue to take the incredible vision they have, but make it better.
Yep, and we've had stories about clients who were maybe going down a path and they actually were led astray at some point, and we actually have to help them kind of get back on track. Can you speak a little bit to our experience helping clients do that? Because backpedaling can be very common during these initiatives where maybe you haphazardly move to the cloud or something like that. So.
Yeah, I think of sort of the analogy of painting yourself into a corner, like literally, and something I've never done, but and then sort of like going out the window. And so I think with our clients, it's about the more we can understand their business, that's more of a relationship we have, that legacy we have with them, connect that into our thought leaders, and then looking at where they're going. I mean, it's our responsibility as their trusted partner to look for where those gotchas are and say, hey, we think you're going in a direction that ultimately doesn't fit the skill set you have, doesn't fit where you're trying to go. It's a short-term game, but it's going to create long-term issues in these areas, and it often means that advocating for our partner, our client, to make the right decisions and really helping them understand sort of, if you go in that direction, here's sort of the challenges associated with it. Let's kind of work through that pros and cons and then work through what's going to be the ultimate best solution. And so I think that's the biggest thing is to have that rapport and that trust, to ask questions, be inquisitive. I think curiosity is one of the best things we have as human beings. Leverage that curiosity in a positive way that supports our clients.
Can you talk about kind of the satisfaction that you've seen? You've mentioned we've been working with a lot of clients for many, many years, and we've kind of seen them evolve and transform, or maybe they were just doing maybe procurement at the start, and now they're pursuing bigger and better initiatives. Can you just kind of talk about the satisfaction that our teams feel when we can evolve with the client and see them transform in that way?
Yeah, I mean, it's just being a small part of anything that's incredible, right? We all feel that, and so as we see our clients going through a journey, it's all about human relationships, right? And when we see a client change their relationship and grow that relationship with us, we always celebrate where we started with that client, and of course we celebrate that journey and where we end up.
So a lot of organizations are familiar with terms like VAR or reseller or systems integrator. Can you kind of draw a line of distinction between all of those terms and how a solutions integrator is especially different?
So when you think of a value-added reseller, or VAR, right, it's really about being that conduit between an ecosystem of partners and your client. And so in that capability, right, working to get the right assets to your client from a procurement perspective at the right time and doing deployments and associated with that it's a great capability and something we have an incredible legacy in and we're world-class in. And so that gives us a knowledge of the investments that have been made in the past. When you think of sort of that systems integrator, it's really around meeting clients in their go-forward transformation and then do the innovation aspect of it as well. And it's, usually, especially with global system integrators, it's around engaging in these massive projects. For us, we're sort of across all those worlds, but in the best possible way. And so we have that procurement capability. We have incredible partner relationships. Our partners count on us to be that connection between our clients and the incredible partner platforms. But we also have the ability to innovate on top of those platforms and bring those platforms together in a very unique way to solve business problems. And so that's sort of that solutioning capability. And then, of course, we have that capability to provide the innovation and to drive the innovation. I think what's differentiated there, if you think of us as a solutions integrator and like a global systems integrator, for us it's about proof of value faster. And so it's around demonstrating through minimum viable products or through reference architectures the impacts we can have. It's not about working to get thousands of people engaged into the account. It's about having that meaningful business impact and then getting to that proof of value faster and then earning that ability to do more within our clients. And so we have to be great at all those things, and we are. We create an amazing experience really from the technology procurement side all the way through the innovation side. And the fact that we're that partner that executes on all those, we can connect those logical pieces.
So because our clients' integration strategies are more important than ever, how do we approach sort of stitching a solution together, building something that's really stratified and strategic, kind of like a Lego tower? Can you talk to that a little bit?
Yeah, so for us, we have incredible partner relationships. We have our own IP that we built out, and we just have so many customer use cases that we solved. And so, we can start to anticipate based on technology trends, based on integration that needs to happen, based on client outcomes, what they're looking to do. And so we pull those together into a solution. And so we use concepts like reference architecture, our IP, the transformation our clients are going through, or our partners are going through. We serve in a lot of partner advisory councils as we understand those roadmaps. And so it's all about, what do we do to pull something together that's going to solve our clients' needs as a complete solution.
Yeah, and we think about these solutions kind of like Lego builds, like towers, where we're piecing all the right pieces together to create something great. Did you ever play with Lego as a kid?
I did, yeah. I was a big Lego fan.
What was your favorite Lego build?
Well, I didn't have it, but I knew a guy. It was the Death Star. And so and you couldn't really play with it once you built it, right? But I would go and admire it, yeah. And so I'd say probably the Death Star. If I had a dream Lego set, it would probably be the Death Star.
Awesome. That's a good one. And your birthday's May 4th, so
it is May 4th.
Totally full circle moment. Stan, it's been great sitting across from you today to unpack this subject. Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm just getting a chance to talk about our incredible teammates and the work we do to impact our communities and our clients in such a meaningful way. So thank you.
Thank you so much.